What is good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video. And this one I want to break down what's going on with Tesla stock and give you guys a very quick update for today. I'm going to break down what's going on in the pre-market and some big news that just came out involving the Tesla price cuts. I'm also going to talk about a couple of other tickers, what's going on with the bank earnings, and everything you need to know about the pre-market so far. But before I begin the devil's information, let me just mention a couple of things. Firstly, I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo, deposit $100 into the account, you are guaranteed up to 5 free stocks. If you deposit $1,000, you're guaranteed up to 15 free stocks, and this offer ends very soon. Anyways, Tesla has been decimated in the pre-market. We got this big drop that ended up coming because of some bad news. I'll be discussing the news about Tesla very momentarily. Let's first talk about some data that's affecting SPY and the whole market. I also want to apologize if I'm talking kind of fast because I have a lot to go over in very limited time. All right, so when it comes to the PPI report, this was aligned with expectations. Core PPI was at 1.8%. This was technically good for the markets. And then PPI year over year was at 1%. Now, this was a slight increase relative to the previous reports, but this was still aligned with expectations. The forecast was 1%. Overall, PPI actually helped the market push a little bit. So this was technically decent, better than what CPI caused. Then at 10 o'clock a.m., we have Kashkari giving a speech. Then we have the WASDE report at noon. But Kashkari's speech starts 30 minutes after market open. Watch for some volatility at that time. PPI was decent for the markets, but what about the earnings that have come out? Overall, earnings were mixed, but a little bit more good than bad. So let's start off with Bank of America. They beat on EPS, but they ended up missing on revenue, and guidance was just so, in my opinion. So this was kind of mixed from Bank of America. JP Morgan Chase beat on EPS. They also beat on revenue. Not bad whatsoever. Decent earnings from them. Citigroup ended up beating on EPS, but they missed on revenue, so mixed earnings from them overall. And guidance was also kind of mixed. Wells Fargo ended up missing on EPS, but they beat on revenue. So once again, mixed earnings from Wells Fargo, but not bad whatsoever when it comes to what they're projecting. And BlackRock did relatively well. They beat on EPS. They also beat on revenue, just barely beat on revenue. Not bad whatsoever from BlackRock. So overall, I would say earnings were quite mixed, but a little bit more good than bad. All right. And that's why the market is kind of like indecisive right now when it comes to the way it's moving. Don't forget that the S&P 500 is up 1.77% thus far this week, and we'll see if this holds. Big bank earnings ended up coming out. We did see some of these large banks see some profits actually fall a little bit due to regulatory fees, and we're going to be watching to see how they continue to perform with the high interest rate environment. It's very mixed. On top of this, PPI was once again decent. This is what this is basically saying. Google is cutting several hundreds of jobs across its hardware, central engineering, and voice activated Google Assist teams. And finally, Delta Airlines has more than doubled its fourth quarter profit as travel demand basically remained very strong. So, not bad from them. Overall, once again, bank earnings were kind of mixed, not the best. But PPI was decent. That helped the market hold up. I want to remind everyone that for SPY, we have a 1.56 put to call ratio, 472 max pain. We'll be watching to see how this affects the close at the end of the day, especially during power hour. And then finally, I just want to call out Tesla. We have some bad news. So this news came out yesterday. This is still making a lot of headlines. I just want to call this out. They're raising the pay for many factory workers, but Tesla took this in a very negative manner because this could still affect their margins. And on top of this, we had a bigger negative piece of news. Tesla shares have dropped on the China price cuts and the German plant shutdown. This summarizes everything you need to know. So what's going on with this? Basically, it's reducing its starting prices of the Model 3 sedan by 5.9%. That's once again a very big change. And the Model Y Sport utility vehicle by 2.8% in China. So they're reducing prices due to the fact that there are demand issues. The high interest rate environment is hurting them. The economic hardships in China right now are also affecting Tesla, and this is causing their sales to slow down. So slowing demand is causing Tesla to cut prices again. Once again, feeding into those margins, which is not what investors like to hear. Negative news from Tesla causing it to basically drop. We also have more bad news that came out. I actually went over this yesterday. I mentioned that the Model Y plant near Berlin is going to likely suspend most production from January 29th through the 11th because of the fact that there is shifting transport routes in response to things going on in the Red Sea. And this is actually causing a shift in supply chains, and it's hurting certain components which are necessary for production. So this production cut for 2 weeks, and then bad news in China with the price cuts has caused Tesla to tank in the pre-markets. We're currently at 220 a share. I'm going to be watching these key levels very, very carefully. So let me break down the levels and talk about the formation on Tesla. Let me just mention that you want to be paying attention to the weekly 50 moving average. That's going to be at 224. See if we can try to get back above that or not. And we also have the 200 moving average at 217.5. Apologize if this is like too small. It's actually at 217.6 actually, so around there. Watch and see if we close around that. That's going to be a key support of 220 fails us. Watch 217.5 is major support. We'll see if that holds for Tesla or not. But that's going to be important for now. Right now, Tesla's been dropping pretty hard, but it's trying to base around 220, so we'll see if that holds. Now, let's just break down the levels very quickly. This video is a little bit late since there is so much data I had to wait for. Basically, we have a potential falling wedge-like pattern, but these don't always play out, guys. I think it's better to just watch your levels just to be safe. Watch 220 on Tesla's kind of hovering around here. It's been stuck here for a few hours. If we break out of this, watch 222.5 as resistance, 223.5, and then 225 to fill this gap if we break above that. If we break above 225, we could favor the bulls a bit more. If we lose 220, you're going to be watching this 218 to 217.5 support, that zone over there. If 217.5 fails us, you're going to be watching this the 215 zone, followed by 213.8, and then 212 and 210. Those are some critical supports. I would say that 217.5 to 218 is the most important one. We need to try to hold above the weekly 200 moving average. If we fail, it's not going to be a good sign for Tesla. Tesla's trying to show some love, trying to base at 220, so we'll see how it holds. Otherwise, just watch these levels. As far as SPY goes, make sure you watch the range on SPY. It is trying to push in the pre-market. It's going to likely try to push when we open. Watch resistance at 477, this zone right here. If it continues to hold above this, watch 478, 478.5. And if it breaks above that, we could get very close to 480. Every dollar, watch for some resistance on SPY once we get to these high levels, but we could get closer to 480 if we continue to hold above 478. That's going to be a big test on SPY. For support, make sure you watch 477, 476, 475.5, 475 flats, 474, and then 472.9, followed by the lows from yesterday. Those are all of our supports. We have a lot of them. How would I say the chart looks? It is trying to push right now because PPI was decent and the bank earnings were kind of mixed, but a little bit more good than bad. So it's trying to push a bit. We'll see if we could get a nice push up. Watch for Kashkari's speech at 10 and how this affects us. So look for a push and open. See if we could try to hold these levels. Watch this resistance carefully. We're looking a little bit bullish as we open, but just be very careful as we're at some tight resistance. Between 478 and 480, resistance tends to be tight overall on SPY historically. So be very careful up here, guys. Market might push a little bit as we open. On the QQQ, just want to mention real quick, QQQ is also doing the same thing, trying to push up towards 410. It's 410 resistance right about here. If it breaks above this, watch these wicks up here, very close to this 411.25 area, then 412. Resistance gets tighter the higher we go because of the fact that we're in new territories, then 413 above that. If you reject off 410, the next critical support is going to be 408. If that fails us, there's some support around 407. Technically, we have a wick right there, but it's not that strong. Stronger support is going to be around 405.7, followed by 404. So watch those levels very carefully, especially that 410 resistance. We will see how it ends up holding. It's going to be very critical for the QQQ. It may attempt to push higher, especially when we open, because of some decent news that's come out, even for like Amazon. But like I said before, the moves don't always last. So watch these levels right here. It's still kind of in this range between 410 and 408. It's been stuck between there for the majority of the days. So we'll see if it stays in this range, and watch your levels very carefully on the QQQ. Look for a push when we open and see how it does from there. On Nvda, you're going to be watching some key levels as well. We have resistance at, let's just double check this. It's kind of testing this 548 zone. If you break above this, watch 550. Then we have tight resistance at these highs from right over here. If it breaks above 552, we could be looking for 555. For support, make sure you watch 545. That fails us. We're going to be coming down to 542. And if we lose that, we turn a bit more bearish. 540 and below is coming. So lose 542, we turn bearish. Break above 548, we're going to be looking for a push towards 550. Overall, Nvidia is still range bound, but it is going to try to attempt to push, in my opinion, when we open, and then we might see how it goes from there. So it could push temporarily, come back down, or not. Otherwise, it's just range bound. So watch your ranges and these levels very, very carefully. Last but not least, for Apple stock, since I went over Tesla, SPY, QQQ, and others, Apple's also range bound, but trying to push. We basically have broken this high from the pre-market right here. We're testing just under 186. If it breaks this, watch 186.5, 187, then 188 above that. For support, make sure you watch 185.5. If that fails us, watch 185, 184.25, followed by 183.45. Overall, we're kind of tight in our resistance, going back and forth and back and forth. But I'm going to be watching these levels on Apple. We're going to see if this thing can try to push a little bit more when we open before coming back down. But overall, if it fails to break 186, it's just going to remain range bound, going back and forth and back and forth. It could continue to do so, and I'm just going to recommend just watching these levels. If anything, that's the best thing to do at a time like this. The market is a little indecisive. It's trying to push a bit thanks to PPI, but it's still slightly indecisive as we had mixed bank earnings. More good than bad, if anything. But with that being said, the main one is Tesla. We'll see how Tesla does. It's trying to hold 220. Let's hope Tesla holds this and make sure you watch that 200 moving average on the weekly. Can we close above 217.5 or so or not? If we achieve that, it's going to be very important. But that's pretty much it for this one. Sorry, I'm kind of late today. There's a lot of data I had to wait for. But with that being said, have a great day, guys. Watch your levels and your ranges, and I'll see you guys very soon on the next one. Thank you and peace out.